Hey, Dr. Mike here. Interested in healing yourself and the planet? Stay tuned to learn more with our guest, John Robbins.
You're listening to Live Foreverish, a show dedicated to helping you live just a little longer. Here's your hosts, Dr. Mike and Dr. Crystal Gossard.
All right, welcome to Live Foreverish. Today with us is a fascinating guest with a fascinating story. Our guest has dedicated his life to helping provide healthy, ethical, sustainable food for people around the world. I think he's written about 10 books, and I know this, they've sold millions of copies. He's the founder of Earth Save International and co-founder of the Food Revolution Network, which has over 800,000 members. And there's so much more to his story. His name is John Robbins. He's the presumed heir to the Baskin Robbins ice cream empire. John Robbins ultimately turned down a $1 billion family business to help promote the health and wellness of people and the planet, which is really cool. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you.
So obviously, our guests are going to be fascinated with your story, right? We have to find out first and foremost how you went from the family business of ice cream, right, into what you currently do and what you've been doing your entire life, right? So tell us a little about, yeah, tell us a little bit about Baskin Robbins to that transition that you knew you wanted to do something different.
Well, my dad and my uncle were the founders and owners of Baskin Robbins, 31 flavors. It became, during my childhood, it became the world's largest ice cream company, a billion-dollar company. And, everyone knows it. And I invented flavors. I'm an only son. I have sisters, but no brothers. So my dad's expectations in terms of succeeding him were all on me. The pressure and the responsibility was all mine. Yeah. And growing up, I loved it. I mean, I invented flavors. I worked in every aspect of the company. What kid doesn't love ice cream,
Right.
And I ate a lot. We had ice cream for breakfast sometimes. There was an ice cream cone-shaped swimming pool in our backyard. I mean, the whole 9 yards, or the whole 9 gallons maybe. But, my dad had heart disease and diabetes. My uncle, Bert Baskin, died of a heart attack at the age of 54. He was a very big guy who ate a lot of ice cream. And I was coming to the conclusion that ice cream is not a health food. And an ice cream cone isn't going to kill anybody. But the more you eat, the more likely you are to have a heart attack, like killed Bert Baskin, my uncle, the co-owner of the company, and almost killed my dad. It gave him a very serious form of diabetes, and made him overweight and gave him heart problems and so forth. The more you eat, the more you're likely to have those kinds of things. And if you're in the business of selling ice cream, you want people to buy and eat a lot of it. So that's just the business model.
Right.
And I just didn't want to make my living, though it would have been a royal one, selling a product that was undermining people's health. I just couldn't do it, ethically. And so when I was 21, I told my dad that I wasn't going to do it. And he was very, very disappointed. He was actually angry about it. And I didn't want to hurt him at all, but I had to be true to what I felt and believed and to what I was called to, which was a life really of service in terms of helping people live healthy lives. And healthy lives, eating and living in such a way that their bodies thank them the rest of their lives, that they vibrate with vitality and health, and also that they live a long, healthy time so they can give from a cup that's full rather than from a cup that's empty. Because if you're ill, if you're sick,
awesome, yeah,
it takes your life down, and in a lot of ways. And so that's what I did. And I ended up writing books and, founding organizations and working with a lot of nonprofits on a lot of boards and so forth, trying to help us awaken as a culture to the damage that our processed food diet, our really junk food diet, while it's very profitable for the companies making and selling that stuff, it's really designed to be addictive.
Yeah. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, the salts, the sugars in all of our
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
standard
yeah. They're
diets.
not.
Oh, they hook you.
They do, and the big companies, the food manufacturing companies, hire what they call craveability experts
Right.
to enhance
It's like,
craveability. That's their term of the
yeah.
foods they sell us and the foods you see in all the
Yeah.
supermarkets
Let's
and
call it what it
wherever.
is. It's addictive at the end
Yeah.
of the
It
day,
is. I
right?
mean, craveability, is that not? I mean, it's just kind of a euphemism for addictive. And they even say it in their ads: the more you eat, the more you want. They want us hooked.
Yeah.
So we'll keep buying more and more of foodstuffs that are hurting us and hurting the world. They're produced in a way, if you look at the agricultural systems that produce most of the animal products in our world today, the industrial beef, for example, it's cruel to the animals. And you don't have to be a vegetarian, by the way, to if you see how the animals are treated, to be
Right. Right.
appalled. I mean, it's that deplorable. It's that extreme.
That wasn't that. Well, I have two questions, and then I'm going to let Dr. Crystal ask a few. I just have to ask this because you mentioned you designed or came up with a couple of flavors. What was your favorite flavor that you actually
Well,
came up with?
the one that I invented that I like the most was Jamocha almond fudge.
Sounds pretty good. It does. You got to admit, it sounds pretty good, right? Anyway, that was just for me. So the second question is so obviously you saw the damaging effect of
Yes.
this kind of food in your uncle and your father, and at age 21, you made a really important decision. But how did you ultimately connect also this to the planet? Wasn't there? Was it you saw how the cows were being treated? What was that? What's that connection there between the food that you're needing healthier food, but also needing a healthier planet?
Well, I learned pretty quickly that it takes a lot more land to produce the amount of grain that you need to feed to livestock than if we ate the grain directly ourselves. When we cycle it through livestock, it's very inefficient. So it takes somewhere between 12 and 16 pounds of grain to make a single pound of feedlot beef. It takes 1 pound of grain to make a pound of rice or
Yeah,
whole wheat bread. So
yeah,
So all that extra grain means a lot more land has to be used to grow that grain, and a lot more inputs, the energy that's involved, the tractors,
yeah,
the fuel,
yeah.
the fertilizers, the
Water.
pesticides,
Isn't water big too and all
unfortunately.
that? It takes a lot of water
Yeah.
to
Oh, it's
raise
sure. Oh,
cattle. Yeah.
really? Yeah. Major, major, major. Lots more water. And so I realized if we ate lower on the food chain, if we ate less meat, less particularly industrial meat, factory meat, we would then be, in effect, using less land. And when we use so much land for our agriculture, what happens is we destroy biodiversity. We destroy the ecology. We exploit the land for our purposes, but then we take it from nature, and then it can't be just forests. It can't be just habitat for wildlife. It can't be just left alone. We use it, and we use it in a way that uses a lot of energy, and that energy, then the types of energy we've used, produces a lot of greenhouse gases. And so climate change, which I'm starting to think we ought to really better call climate chaos, actually, because it's
Yeah.
change, yes, but it's change in a very kind of frightening way.
Mm.
And all the other environmental issues, biodiversity, the loss of species, our depletion of the groundwater, our pollution of the groundwater, pollution of the air, of our air quality, all of these serious environmental issues, I found when I looked into it, were grossly impacted. I mean, severely impacted by producing the foods that were giving us heart disease and giving us cancers and giving us Alzheimer's disease and shortening our lives and shortening the quality, reducing the quality of our lives.
Yeah.
And I just felt like this is a win-win-win here. If we learn how to eat in a way that feeds our cells the nutrients they really need, it gives us the vitality we want, it gives us the ability to live the life we want to live, and care for the people we want to care for in good ways, then we can also at the same time walk lighter on the earth, have a lighter, smaller
I like
ecological
that. Walk
footprint,
lighter.
as it were, produce
Yeah. Yeah.
fewer greenhouse gas emissions, et cetera. And I just thought, if I can do something that's better for my health, and it's also better for the forests and the wildlife and the future of life on Earth, sign me up for that.
Yeah,
That's
great. That's great. Yeah,
you know.
it's interesting, Dr. Crystal. We talk to a lot of people, right? That kind of have this same philosophy now. But here, John, I mean, you were one of the leading pioneers in this, really,
Yeah.
this kind of movement, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to talk about your father, and you were featured in a magazine article with Life Extension. So I read that article, and one thing that stood out was your father. I think it came full circle
Yes.
where
Yeah.
he received a book that you had
Yes.
written from
Yeah.
his doctor.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that, and just tell
Yeah.
us about that full circle moment with
Yeah.
him kind of seeing the light?
Yes, I can. It was pretty, in my life, it's the most meaningful things that's ever happened, actually, for me. My dad was a tycoon. He was a very, very, very successful businessman, and he founded and owned what became the largest ice cream company in the world. Um, by the time I made my decision, he had made and sold more ice cream than any human being that had ever lived on the planet. I mean, he was good at what he did, but he wasn't very open to other ways of thinking. And he was very disappointed and angry at me when I did the decision. He groomed me to succeed him at the company. And then I made a decision for conscience and walked away from it. And he, he didn't take that well. Even though I tried to be as diplomatic, as tactful, as respectful as I could about it. But then fast forward 20 years and he's now getting along in years, and he's got serious diabetes. He's got heart disease. He's had several heart attacks. He's very overweight. His diabetes is advancing, and the prognosis is very bad. And he goes to one of his physicians, who happened to be the most prominent cardiologist in Rancho Mirage, California, and a very highly paid guy. And the doctor leveled with him. He said, "Mr. Robbins, at this point, you're a pretty sick guy. And really the best we can do is juggle your medications, try to control some of the side effects you're experiencing, try to make your few remaining years a little more comfortable, unless you're willing to make major changes in how you eat and what you live, and how you live and what you eat." And my dad said, "Well, what do you mean?" He was scared.
Yeah.
After all, this is, in his mind, this is the high priest of Western medicine speaking to him. This is almost
Right.
God speaking, and it's the prognosis is frightening. So he says, "What are you talking about?" And the doctor, cardiologist, handed him a copy of my first book, Diet for a New America, which had been just
Wow.
reviewed by the American College of Cardiology in a very beautiful way. And he handed him the book and said, "I think you should read this book." And the irony, the remarkable irony, is that he knew the author was John Robbins. He knew who his patient was, Irv Robbins, the founder of Baskin Robbins, but he didn't connect the two. He didn't know that the book he was handing my dad had been written by my dad's son.
Wow.
He didn't know that.
It's crazy.
And my dad didn't tell him. He just, I guess he was just, in a state of bit of shock about everything. But he took the book and he went home and he started to read it. He started making changes, and then he got results. And his blood pressure was coming down. He needed less blood pressure meds. It came down more, and needed less blood pressure meds. His weight came down. His golf game improved. Everything started looking better. His blood cholesterol levels, all his blood numbers were improving. He needed less meds. They took him off statins. Everything was going great, and he was feeling better and better and better. And he kept making more changes. And then finally, his diabetes went into remission also. So he no longer needed insulin, and he no longer needed even diabetic pills. And this is a remarkable transformation. And he experienced this in his own body and life, and his blood tests and how he felt, all were saying, this is the right path for you. So he was, I think it was challenging for him, because after all, this is the maverick son who rejected his life work. That, it was complex emotionally. But he called me up one day and he said, "Johnny, you won't believe it. You just won't believe it. It's incredible." I said, "Okay, Dad, tell me what's incredible. What I believe." He said, "Well, it turns out you were right."
That's good. So
Oh,
he did give you the that's
wow.
great. That's awesome. I was going to ask if he ever actually gave you credit. That's good.
Full
Well, he
circle
did
moment.
because it was my book that he read, and then he read Dean Ornish's work, and then he read other people's work,
Mhm.
and but it was my book that started him on a path, and he lived another 20 healthy years. And he died in his
Wow.
90s, but he was healthy, pretty healthy up till almost the very end.
That's
And
nice.
that's what we want, isn't it? To be healthy in
Yes.
our later years.
Yeah,
I'm
that's the
I'm
name
all
of our
about
show.
extending our lives, but in a healthy way. I don't think it's a great thing to live to 100 if your last 15 years are spent in a nursing home, and
Yeah,
if you lose your
John, the name of
mind.
our podcast is Live Foreverish. We
Yeah,
want to live a little longer, but we want it to be good years, vibrant years,
exactly.
strong years. You
Exactly.
Right.
know,
So it's about,
yeah,
for me, extending your health span and your
yeah,
lifespan. But the health span is really important. And the research now is pretty strong. We do know how to prevent a very, very high percentage of the cases of Alzheimer's
Mhm.
and similar dementias. That's really important because we don't have the treatments for those diseases. We really do not. And there are new drugs all the time because they're trying to find an answer.
Mhm.
But those drugs are overhyped, and they're not nearly as good as the drug companies would want doctors and the
oh yeah,
public to believe, and
very
so they can
true.
profit
Right.
from selling them,
Yeah.
honestly. And if you can live in such a way as to greatly reduce your risk of Alzheimer's and cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all the other diseases that we see so often in our older people, that's a great thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And if
And
doing
when
that same thing, you're also giving a gift to the planet and to the animals. You're sparing animal suffering. You're creating a better world for future generations. You're reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I think that is. I mean, that
yeah.
sets my heart singing. It just makes me want to, live it and talk about it and help people understand it and help people wherever they're at. You don't
Yes.
have to be 100%. You can go 90%. Every step you take is in the right direction, gets you closer to a healthy life on every level in a healthier world. And I think
Right.
that's
And
the
there's
one
so many
good news.
messages to take
Yeah.
away so far. Just one is to follow your heart. Imagine if you would not have followed the path that you originally took when you were 21, and to see it come full circle with you following that path, writing the book, and now that book being instrumental with saving your father's life is a message in and of
Yeah.
itself. But you've taken that message from books to now the Food Revolution Network. And so now
Yes.
you're taking this message to, even broader audiences.
Yes.
Tell us a
And
little bit about that, and into medical schools now.
yes,
So
very much so. Yeah. Yeah. One of the sadnesses about Western medicine, I think, is it's missed the boat on nutrition. And in medical school, the average MD in 4 years gets maybe 2 hour coursework in nutrition. They don't know.
Maybe,
Maybe,
maybe that. Yeah.
maybe, and some of that's wrong because it's actually using materials supplied by the drug companies and the dairy board and the beef.
John, you got to know that what you just said is so true. With the medical school I went to, we had it was kind of like the nutrition course was a part of another course, and it was basically a handout from Big Pharma, and we
Wow,
basically read it on our own, answered a few questions, and turned the sheet in, and we got checked off for a
wow,
nutrition course.
wow. And
yikes.
when you realize how important what we eat is to the health we will experience, it's almost a crime. And
Yeah.
you can't blame doctors. They go to school, they learn what they learned, they trust, and then they practice in terms of what they've learned. And so we've been working to try to get nutritional education, a legitimate nutritional education, quality nutritional education taught in medical schools, and we've made some good strides in that direction. And we have some excellent people helping us. Dr. Kim Williams, former president of the American College of Cardiology, is a close friend of ours and works with us on this. We have a lot Dean Ornish does. We're working very hard at getting that corrected so that doctors, because most aspiring doctors, people go into medicine, they want to help people. Sure, they want to make a good living. Sure, everyone does, but they
Mhm.
want to help people. And if all you have is drugs and surgery, if you're an effective pill pusher, those drugs tend to have side effects. They tend to be overhyped. Some of them do wonderful things, but if you can prevent the disease in the first place,
Yes.
Well, I got to tell you, you've made an impact because I went to medical school in the late '90s. I told you what my nutrition course was like, but at my medical school now, UT Southwestern in Dallas, there is a department of integrative medicine that includes true nutrition courses now.
that's great.
So things have changed, and hopefully, newer
We're
generations
working
of
on it.
doctors coming out will appreciate that.
Yeah, we're working at it hard, and we're also educating the public, and empowering the public to take a stand for what gives them life, and to free themselves from the clutches of processed food companies and factory farm meat companies that do not have your well-being in mind at all.
Mm.
They want to profit. They don't care how. I mean, I'm not against people making money, but how do you do it? If you do it by stealing, no, that's not good. If you do it by hurting people, that's not good. And honestly, I've come to look at the processed food companies as really almost criminal because they're hurting people and they're targeting kids with their ads. And those ads are sophisticated. And children are vulnerable. We should protect our kids. I think we should ban junk food advertising to kids that's targeting children. I think that would be the right thing to do. I think our kids would be healthier, and we're working on that. That's what at Food Revolution Network. That's one of our other causes or missions. And people can learn about our work at foodrevolution.org. Food Revolution, one word, foodrevolution.org. And I want to say also, I teach a course on longevity, on how to live a healthy and long life through foodrevolution.org. And people can sign up there for a free master class about this. And it's the website for that. The link for that is longevity.foodrevolution.org.
So we have two. Let's repeat that. So we have foodrevolution.org, right, which is the Food Revolution Network. And then if they want the longevity course, longevity.foodrevolution.org.
Exactly. Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And we'll put that in the summary for the podcast. So you can look down in the summary information and those links will be there as well. Well, so on our show today, what can you share on some of the key nutrition principles that people can incorporate right away?
Well, eat more plants, eat a variety of plants. People love kale's become the vegetable of the year or something, and rightly so. I mean, it's great. It's full of great nutrients, but it turns out that the diversity of your diet is really important. So if you ate nothing but kale, you wouldn't do all that well. Even though kale is a great food. Eat it if you like it. Find ways to like it. Great, but the more different kinds of plant foods that you eat, the greater variety of vegetables, because each of them have a different type of fiber, and fiber is the food for the good bacteria in your microbiome, and you want a diversity of bacteria and other microbes in your gut. That's how you'll flourish the best. And that, in order to feed that diversity, you need a diversity of types of fiber, and that's from a diversity of types of plant foods, whole plant foods. I'm not talking about, Coca-Cola may be a plant food, but no, that's not what I mean. But fruits and vegetables and seeds and nuts and whole grains and legumes, beans, and peas. These are the foods to base your diet around. And mushrooms, onions, greens. Greens are great. Berries are the really great. All fruits are good, but berries are particularly good. And we're finding that the berries are pretty colors. Blueberries and raspberries and strawberries, they're gorgeous looking. Yeah. There's a reason for that. What gives them the color are polyphenols that actually provide are nutrients for us. So they're pretty, they taste good, and they're great for you. So berries are an important thing to include a lot of. and you want to stay away from the processed food and that
Yeah,
fried foods
for sure. Yeah.
and the factory farm meats, honestly, and dairy's very overrated. The dairy industry has had a degree of power in our governmental programs, and they've insisted that the government teach children you must drink 3 glasses of milk a day. Well, that's actually bad advice. That's actually very
Yeah,
bad.
Dr. Crystal and I debate about this.
Regularly.
Here's the thing. So, John, everything you say is, of course, it's spot on. We talk about, Dr. Crystal is a nutritionist. We talk about needing variety. We like the 80-20 rule. When you look at your plate, 80% of that should be, good variety of vegetables, 20% lean protein. I think that's a good ratio, supports heart health and all that kind of stuff. The problem is, from the time a kid is born in this country today, all the way through most of their lives, all of the commercials and all of the marketing is about grains and processed foods, and
Hmm.
I mean it's a real hill to overcome, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And I've actually seen baby bottles to feed babies with the Coca-Cola insignia or logo
Oh
on the
God, don't
bottle.
tell me that.
Yeah,
Gee.
yeah. And Coca-Cola, of course, manufactures those bottles and gives them out free in hospitals. When babies are born, they get a little kit of gifts, and it includes this kind of thing. And I just find this not just offensive, but disturbing. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to protect our children so they get started in the right direction in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's breastfeeding if at all possible. There's no
Hmm.
formula that's as good as what a human mother can produce for her baby.
For sure.
And when a woman is pregnant, if she can take response, she's now eating for 2, and think about the quality of what she's eating. That will help her eventual newborn, her eventual child, her eventual adult child.
Very true.
Will carry on. We get in grooves and we tend to stay in them.
Yes.
And that's why the industry, they know that. That's why they target with their ads so much. McDonald's Happy Meals are about the least happy meal in the world and they're cheap, but they're really not cheap if you factor in the cost of heart disease.
Yeah,
If you
for sure.
factor in the cost of last time I looked, cancer
Major
was
impact, major economic impact, right across the board.
Yeah. And so, I like your 80-20 rule. And lean protein can be tofu. It can be it can be
It doesn't have to be animal. You're right. Yeah. Yep.
But it can be tempeh, which that's a soy product that I happen to love. It's really good for your microbiome also.
Yeah. So you're listening to John Robbins. What a story. I want to thank you for coming on today. I mean, we could just go on and on and on. I want to end this way and just ask you, John, what's the take home message for the Live Foreverish audience? What's the one thing, 2 things that you really want them to remember and take to heart from today's show?
Well, I'm thinking of the Serenity Prayer, in which it's well known in 12-step programs. It's in which we ask for the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, and the courage to change the things that we can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And as we get older, there will be things that we can't change. There will be things that we need the serenity to find, the serenity to accept. That's going to happen. But there's a lot of things we can change. And if we have the wisdom to know the difference, if we have the courage to make the changes that will make a difference in the quality of our lives, and if we can make those changes early enough in our lives, I mean, it's really never too late to make them and get some benefit.
Right, for sure.
Right.
The earlier you make them, the longer you stay with them, the greater the benefit. And so, yes, aging, has its. Somebody once said aging isn't for sissies. I know what they mean, but it can be for beautiful people who live healthy lives to the very end.
Yeah,
And
for
I want
sure.
each of our viewers and listeners to know that. And you have an opportunity to be one of those people. And you don't have to live the standard American life and eat the standard American diet and get the standard American diseases. You
Yeah.
don't have to do that. And there's a lot of social pressure, and it's normalized. And no doubt your friends and family members are taking kind of a unhappy and probably disease likely path, but you
Mhm.
don't have to do that. And when you make those changes, when you choose yourself, you choose to honor yourself, you choose to respect yourself. So you eat food that enhances your self-respect and the quality of your experience of yourself. And then you're a model for those other people who maybe
Awesome. Yeah.
tease you at first or
Yeah.
mock you at first even.
Yeah.
But then they'll see how great you're doing, and they'll wish they did it too, and they'll follow in your footsteps, and they'll thank you.
That's great. John Robbins, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Don't forget, we got a couple of websites for our audience to check out. Foodnetwork.org.
Uh,
You can learn
excuse
about
me,
the food. I'm sorry,
foodrevolution.org.
foodrevolution.org. And then we also have longevity.foodrevolution.org as well.
Yes.
So check those out, and we'll have those in the summary as well. John, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it. You're listening to
Thank you.
liveforeverish.com. Live Foreverish. Don't forget that you can go to liveforeverish.com, where you can download several other episodes. And don't forget to like, share, and comment, and hit the subscribe button so you never miss a show. That's liveforeverish.com. I'm Dr. Mike. Thanks for listening.